ต้นไม้ในใจคนฟังวิญญาณลงดินแต่ลมหนาวช่วยเหลือคนที่ลุ่มร้อนกับลมเย็นผูกเพยวนใต้ต้นไม้ใหญ่ฝากหัวใจไปกับลมแต่ลมหนาวช่วยเหลือคนปลูกต้นไม้สร้างลมหนาวปลูกต้นไม้
Hello everybody, happy Monday. My name is Elise and welcome to my tea table. I am streaming a little later tonight. I typically like to start my Monday series at 2 p.m. Pacific, but now we're at almost 7 p.m. I'm 5 hours late. Really sorry for you all if you were expecting some time schedule on this, but we're here now. Welcome. On Mondays, I do Dignified Hospitality Manifesto, where I talk about all of the ways that we can bring more dignity to our food system. That is ranging anywhere from the farms to the supply chain to the stores, the retailers, and then of course the chefs and the servers and the bartenders. So today, in spirit of Black History Month, which this is the last week that we will be in February, which is Black History Month, I've decided to dedicate this platform, Dignified Hospitality, to acknowledging the stories of Black history in our food. Should be a good discussion. Hey, Tea Sleuth, what's up, man? Welcome to the tea table. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Things are starting to warm up wherever you are. Here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we are definitely starting to enjoy the warm, beautiful weather. Now, what inspired me to do this stream today was yesterday I was watching a documentary on Netflix, which I recommend, called Amend. It's mostly hosted by Will Smith. Actually, it's hosted by Will Smith. Hey, Charles. Good to see you, Charles. Are you in Huntsville? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, speaking of Alabama, I am going to be talking a lot about Southern cuisine today and the stories of Southern cuisine. And of course, along with that, I am going to be playing some wonderful Delta blues music. Thank you, Charles. You guys are already in the 50s in St. Louis? Wow. That's good. That's a good thing, right? I think you guys needed a break from all the cold weather, so that's good. So anyway, there's a movie, a docu-series on Netflix called Amend. And first off, I definitely do want to recommend that for your viewing. It's a little bit more in alignment with the Wednesday segments that I do for a Constitution study group. So I will be addressing some of the things that docuseries has brought up on my Wednesdays segments, but on today, what I was inspired by was that there was a story from that docuseries that I had never heard about. And I, am nowhere near a historian, but I just felt like this story was too mind-blowing for that not to be included in our history books, not to be included in, the story of Black history, which I'd never heard it before. And this is the story from the mid-1950s when the segregation in the schools was banned. And there was one county in Virginia, was that Prince Edward Island County in Virginia. They decided that they were not going to integrate their schools. They wanted to keep the schools segregated. And they were so defiant about that they chose to straight out close 21 of the schools in their county for 5 years in defiance of this order for integration in the schools. And instead what they ended up doing was creating like private schools for the white students and funding those private schools with federal and state dollars, and pretty much leaving all the other students high and dry to figure out what to do for that 5 years with no schools available in their community. And the federal government did end up outlawing the use of those private school grants for the white students. And so then they ended up having to reopen the schools for everybody and integrate because it was the law. And so anyway, this is just one of the many, many incredible, saddening stories of Black history in this country. And I'm not streaming today to talk about that story. I've just said that story to share the inspiration of why I've chosen to focus today's talk on food, on hospitality, on the dignity of the Black community within our food system. So I found a couple of articles that I will look over, and we'll keep it. Hey, Mafelda, good to see you. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Welcome to my stream. Today is going to be my acknowledgement of telling the Black stories of food. This is Black History Month. This is the last week I can do that. So, not to say that we shouldn't continue to tell those stories even outside of Black History Month, but a lot of that is happening right now. So I'm going to use this platform for that. So I chose Delta blues music because I, looked at during that time of integration and that resistance. What did they call it? They called it there was an actual term that they gave for that time. But anyway, that was like in the mid 1950s. And so I looked up, very popular Black music during that time, and Delta blues was one that piqued my interest. So I'm going to be exploring that genre today, enjoying some really great blues music. I'm going to be enjoying some beautiful Darjeeling black tea. And of course, a little social eating going on today. I've got a little food to enjoy today here on stream. This is a very, very, very deep dish pizza and some black sesame rolls, black sesame buns that I made. I'm gonna get brewing. Got my tea table. Just priming all my wares here. Yeah, Eric, you like that? You like how deep that is? Look at that. I mean, this is almost like, at this point, it's almost like a focaccia bread. It's so deep. But it's good. Mm-hmm. This is called Blood Moon. Blood Moon black tea. This is from the blood moon of the summer of 2018. Remember there was that blood moon, that really cool blood moon that happened in the summer of 2018, a couple years back? The farmers, the Yankee Tea Factory, the Yonku Tamang and her son Alan harvested tea during the day of that blood moon and used the blood moon for withering the tea, and then ended up processing the tea all throughout the night of the blood moon. So that's quite exciting. That's why we call it blood moon. Oh, that pizza's so good. Hey Brian, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. Blood moon tea, yep. Blood moon. It's good. This is actually this is probably their most popular from the Yankee Tea Factory. This is probably their most popular tea. Happy big old Monday to you too, Brian. I like that. Brian, I'm doing a little social eating today. I brought what's now become my dinner. I packed this all and brought it for lunchtime and got caught up in some activities, and so now it's dinner time. So enjoying some extremely deep, look at that, look how deep that is, this pizza, but it's good. The pizza's really good. Yeah, it is good. So I made these two things. I made the pizza, and then I also made these. This is a black sesame bun. So instead of using the cinnamon sugar butter mixture, I used black sesame paste and sugar. And filled it in, but I braided it. I made a little braid guy. But the dough on both of these is from it's the same dough. But, you know, one savory, one sweet. It's pretty bold, but like with all teas in our catalog, they're all it's refined. It's definitely refined, but it's bolder. You know, like a lot of people, tea experts, kind of don't give Darjeeling the credit that it deserves and write it off as oolong tea. It's just, you know, some soft flowery oolong tea. But this is certainly a very bold, deep colored tea, but still very clean at the same time. Still very clean. You found a tamale store? You're in Phoenix, Brian? I thought tamale stores was just a New Mexico thing. I didn't know. Arizona was on that trend too. Yeah, Charles, this is a red tea. You're right. But it's also a black tea. It's always confusing for people because in Chinese language, Hong Cha, which is this type of tea, black tea, it actually means red tea. So it always confuses people. It is a ruby color, you're right. And that's why they call it red tea. Because black tea is not black. It's oxidized to be a very, very deep brown color. It's browning. So yeah, it's like a red-brown. Yeah, man. Making dough is a task. So if you're going to make dough, you might as well make a bunch of it and make a bunch of different things from it instead of, you know, having to eat all the same type of thing for a week straight afterwards. Oh, that's cool. So the grandma of the store in Phoenix you're at is from New Mexico, but started the transplant store. Now the grandkids took over it. Well, that's a sweet story. I like that story. Getting into it. Charles, you grow white tea. I'm gonna have to check you out. And if you, yeah, Charles, find me on Facebook. You can find me. I'm easy to find. Or you can just go follow Tealet, follow our Tealet account. You'll find me through that. Let's see, maybe you already found me on Facebook. No, I don't see you on there yet. But yeah, I would love to see your tea plants. I'd love to hear about your tea garden and the white tea. Oh yeah, that's interesting, Charles. You're right. Yeah, the reddish color of the full moon from the blood moon. Yeah, Tealet. You'll find my Facebook on Tealet, and then you'll find me. And here, I'll type in my name so you can see my name. I'm doxing myself, but I'm a public figure, so it's okay. Just search for my name in Tealet. You'll find me on Facebook. You can friend me. You're welcome to. But I'm also welcome to not friend you back too. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'd love to see your tea garden. Where are you located? Where's your white tea growing? But yes, the blood moons do come out red. That's why they're called blood moon. And it's actually an eclipse. It's an eclipse that's happening, and it's like the Earth eclipse between the sun and the moon, so then the moon can't get lit. Oh, it's in Huntsville. Oh, and you're in Alabama. Okay, great. That's right. You told me earlier. I'm so sorry about that, Charles. Cool. You know, the only tea that I've seen in Alabama is in Fairhope. Is that where you got your plants from? Did you get your plants from Darrett? Wait, no, what's his name? Donnie Garrett? Donnie Barrett? Donnie. I remember him. Donnie in Fairhope, Alabama. He was a great guy. Incredible human being. Actually, he is like the Johnny Tea Seed of U.S. grown tea history. He actually revived a lot of plant material from some retired research stations years and years ago, and propagated out, I think it was just one plant, or maybe it was two plants that he had saved, propagated that out into a proper tea garden, and you know, now he is the docent of his community's history museum. And so he integrates his work with the museum, with his tea garden, and he'll invite people to come to his tea garden to harvest and process tea, and then take seeds and plants away. I met him about 10 years ago, and he had told me that he had given out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tea plants. None of them for commercial use, just people that had visited him and wanted tea and took the tea with them. So it wouldn't be a surprise if even the seeds that you got, Charles, maybe some lineage, and it maybe not even directly, it could have been passed through, you know, 3 or 4 different people in gardens before it reached you. But that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that, Charles. I look forward to connecting with you on Facebook. And if you don't find me on Facebook, Charles, I'll find you after the stream. I won't do it right now, but when I finish, I'll make sure that we get connected, because I love to be connected with anybody that's growing tea. Yeah, we share a lot of information and resources that you'll find helpful if you do plan to like scale up your tea garden and your tea production. Yeah, you'll find the resources on our YouTube channel as well as our various social media platforms useful in your adventure. God, this tea is good. Good tea. Good tea. All right, so I'm going to move on to our programming for the day. It's going to be a good one. It took 70 days to sprout. Yep, that sounds about right. It might have sprouted. Actually, how did you germinate your seeds? Because when I've germinated seeds in the past, it took only a few weeks. But you know, I didn't germinate them directly into soil, so maybe that's the different. I had germinated them on, you know, wet paper towels. So you might have germinated them in the soil, which means it might have germinated and started growing before you were able to see it. Yeah, because it only took like a few weeks before on the paper towel for like the. Oh, you were in pine bark mulch. Cool. Outside. Yeah, I've done it like indoors in like humidified small area. And then as soon as the taproot popped out, it germinated, then moved it into soil. Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with germinating seeds and growing tea, just the few plants that I had started up where I was living in Hawaii. I started this business and started this journey of studying tea. Tea sleuth? Really? Tea sleuth on Twitch says, I don't germinate, I Russianate. Was that... Come on, let me know. Was that a good joke? Let me know. T-Sleeth, you're not allowed to answer that question. Because I already know your answer. You're the one that said the joke. It's a funny one, though. I like it. I love silly, childish humor, so bring more of it. Eric answered his own question. It was pitiful. You're supposed to have a lot more confidence in your humor, Eric. It is silly, Charles. I know. All right, that was silly, but it's cool. I welcome that. More burp jokes, fart jokes, all of that. Bring it on. You know, like once actually I turn affiliate on the Twitch stream, we're gonna have a lot of cool, fun, interactive ways for you guys to bring more silliness into the stream. So please, I welcome it all. I welcome it all. Thanks, Charles. Keep it up, Eric. Keep it up, T-Sleuth. Keep up the good jokes. Let me see. I have my camera closer up now. Now you can get like good view of my tea just from right here. Tea drunk. Yes, do it. Yeah, I think I'll be getting tea drunk by the end of this. This is a pretty strong, vibrant tea, and I'm brewing it pretty strongly. Usually this tea is a much more fuller leaf. You see here, it's pretty broken here. But this is like the bottom of the bag. That's pretty much the only thing that I drink for myself, is the bottom of the bags. Because it's still good tea. It's just, Eric, you did get tea drunk? Eric, I've drinking a lot of tea with you in the past, and I don't think I've ever seen you tea drunk. In fact, I've seen you fall asleep at the tea table while everybody else is just like jumping off the walls tea drunk. And you're sleeping. All right, I'm gonna jump into our studious portion of the stream And of course, like always, feel free to stop me, feel free to comment, feel free to ask questions, and feel free to get me off track of what I'm talking about. Like, that's what live streaming is all about. This is not a perfectly produced video with perfectly produced curriculum. Like, this is an interactive co-learning experience. You got tea drunk in Hunan on an amazing Fushuan. Well, that makes sense. That must have been fun. Was that when you slipped on the banana peel? Was I not supposed to share that story? Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something that I have no place to be talking about. But on the same token, it's like we all have the responsibility to not only talk about, but to think about and research. And so this is my... the banana peel happened in Chaozhou. Sorry about that, Eric. Sorry, I switched those things up for you. People don't know tea. Well, Charles, we have a lot of friends that would think differently here on our social media channels, our community here, that think that, you know, like they know a lot of people that know a great deal about tea. But you're right. Generally, people don't know about tea because we kind of tabooized it for a long time. You remember the Boston Tea Party when we dumped all the tea into the harbor? Like, that was actually really dank good tea. But from that point up until about, you know, just about 20 years ago, you know, the idea of tea, the culture of tea, all embodied something that we were trying to disconnect ourselves from. So that's why. But people are learning, and they're learning quickly, and they're learning well. You know what I mean? Like, they're not becoming... Some are, but there's a less chance... there's a higher chance that when people learn about tea in the United States, they're going to learn about it in a much more culturally respective, more diverse way. Of course, if they're learning about it from a marketer, like, you know, a big box marketer, that's not going to happen. But, you know, like even in places like Korea and Japan and China, where there is a very strong domestic tea market and tea culture, it is not so diverse. And it's pretty indoctrinated. It's pretty dogmatic. That, you know, if you come from a certain place, this is the type of tea that you drink, and this is the best type of tea, and there's no other tea even worthy of researching or looking into. So that's what I mean by that. But yeah, you're right. I'm gonna make myself a little bit bigger here. Charles, you said you've learned what you've learned from growing it. Well, that's the best way to learn. And that's why, you know, there's so many like tea education certification programs. There's even, you know, tea businesses educating, writing books about tea and educating their customers about tea. And what I've found, and the reason why I'm not constantly publishing tea or publishing books about tea, is that because I find that the best way that you can learn about tea is by actually interacting with the plant itself, harvesting it, seeing the changes that go through the tea leaf after it's been harvested. I feel like people learn so much more about tea. All right, so unfortunately, some modern music is made in a way that's not the same. What's not the same? Like learning from a book versus learning from the plant. Yeah, they're totally different. Totally different. So the best education that I ever offer is tours, sourcing tours every spring, which unfortunately last spring and this coming spring, I'm not able to take people with me to go learn about tea together. But I am trying to utilize this virtual platform for doing that and sharing that experience. And so that's why, like, even whenever I'm talking here and want to talk about certain things about tea, you know, I can just have it here in my background. You know, it's like, oh, we want to talk about what it's like to roll tea, what tea rolling and what happens to the tea plant after you've harvested it and need to roll it. You know, this definitely is not the same as touching and feeling and smelling it yourself, but it's better than nothing. And to be honest, I feel like it's better than even a textbook. Yeah. T Sleuth says that banana peel I slipped on in Chaozhou was the best learning experience I've ever gotten. You're funny. Well, you are funny. Oh, I need to move myself up more. What did you learn, T Sleuth? What did you learn about that banana peel experience? Let me know. What did you learn? You make your own soil every year. Well, that's good. You make that, you compost yourself and make it. So the first thing is to make the worm bed, feed the worms, feed the soil. Yeah, that's great. That's so you do the vermicomposting, which is actually becoming a more and more popular method of fertilizing in tea growing regions in India. And you know, we've been trying to advocate for others. All right, so I'm gonna get onto the programming. I think I'm ready. Are we ready, guys? It is awesome, Charles. I love it. People are like squirmish about worms, but I think they're incredible. Same thing with like cows. You know, cows have very powerful manure. Not even just the manure, and it's written in like the religious ancient texts in India and Hindi culture about cows, which, you know, you've heard of the holy cow, you know, like don't eat cow, don't kill cow. We pray to the cow. That's a real thing, and it has a lot to do with the gifts that the cow has to offer. Not just the milk that we can consume, but you know, the dung, the urine, the milk. All those things can be turned into very useful agricultural tools. So Charles, if you've got cows, or if you've got neighbors with cows, that's a good one. It's a good one to find a way to use the, it's mostly the manures and the urine. Once we connect on Facebook, I can send you some resources on that stuff. All right, so T. Sleuth said he learned when crossing the street to look 3 ways: left, right, and the ground that you're walking on. Yeah, the banana peel was the middle of the street. Luckily, not a busy street. Oh, you're talking about The Classic of Tea by Lu Yu. Have you read that? Have you, you know, actually, I believe that Eric, our friend in Twitch, you know, is sharing the banana peel story, is friends with somebody who is doing an extensive translation, English translation of that book. So it could be a good friend if you're interested in that book. Because I know there have been some translations, but I've also heard some criticisms that the translations haven't been like 100% perfect. When translating any language is like that, it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. You read it 7 years ago? You haven't heard from him in 2 years? Well, I hope he's fine. Eric, you should check in on him. I know that you value his friendship a lot. I think it'd be a good idea to just check in and see how he's doing. I mean, for anybody, if there's some friends that you've been thinking about, you haven't heard from in a while, like this is a good time to check in. Give them a shout, see if they're doing okay. How are they handling their time during the pandemic? We could all use that. Chinese language is difficult and complex. It is. I tried learning Mandarin for about 4 months. I invested like a lot of my energy and attention into it and didn't get it. I did quite well with Japanese, and I've learned other languages before, but the Mandarin. And then not to mention like the specific vocabulary needed for tea. Yeah, it's difficult. All right, so before I jump into this topic, again, this is going to be a sensitive topic, and it's not my place to be talking about this topic, but at the same time, it is my fucking place. So I'm sorry, my language, I'm just like, very passionate about this. That's making the excuse of like, this is not my place, or the time is not right, or we need to wait. Like that was like a big focus of one of the episodes of the Amend show on Netflix. Again, I recommend it. If you're looking for something interesting and educational on Netflix, Amend, it's a Will Smith docuseries. One of the topics was weight. That even allies of this fight for justice and fight for equality use that term weight. And I felt happy to see that, because that's something that I feel like I've struggled with, not just in dealing with this specific idea of culture and of sovereignty, but just in general with the work that I do in tea, of trying to empower farmers and empower the market and empower the consumer to know what's going on behind the scenes of the industry. For so long, I got the response from my peers and my mentors of the industry of like, we have to wait. Slow down. Don't talk about these things right now. The time is not right. And wait, as in wait, stop, hold on, hold your horses. And I feel we can't wait anymore. And so that I felt very empowered to hear that message in that docuseries. Yeah, you can't wait, And so if someone ever tells me I need to wait or slow down, elbows are coming out. So yeah, that's why, these things that we feel like we need to tiptoe around, to be sensitive about. Yes, be sensitive, be mindful, keep your brain and your heart open while you're addressing those things and embarking on those journeys, but don't freaking wait. We can't wait anymore. So without any further ado, let's get it going, guys. So before I jump deep into this and get into the articles that I've found, I'm going to start with just a very basic, vocabulary. We got to go visit the dictionary. It's just my thing. I like doing it. It's a very powerful thing. I had an experience a few days ago. We visited the dictionary to look at the word. I know this is another trigger word, but a friend and I were talking about this. The word rape. And it just blew both of our minds to just like take it back to simplistic terms and see, wow, this word totally means something totally different than what, our ideas in our heads about it and the sensitivities that we thought we needed to display around that word. And so, yeah, all the more reason to to celebrate the dictionary and celebrate, elementary approaches to things that we want to understand and learn about. So the word today that I'm going to start us out with, because this is like it's an ongoing theme throughout all the conversations around Black history and equality and justice, and that's the word diaspora. Maybe a word that you've heard before. It was a new word for me just a couple of years ago, and I still feel like I'm trying to like wrap my head around that word. And so Merriam-Webster's dictionary, definition 1, is specifically around Judaism, which, you know, I don't know if is too, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that because I'd never seen that. But so definition 1, capitalized Judaism, the Jews living outside Palestine or modern Israel. The settlement of scattered colonies of Jews outside ancient Palestine after the Babylonian exile, and the area outside ancient Palestine settled by Jews. So, and even just from that definition, which is a very specific definition for diaspora, can tell you a lot about what that word means. But I'm curious about knowing like the history of this word, of like the first use of it, if it did apply strictly to the Jews living outside of Palestine or something else. But anyway, the second definition, and this is the one that's more appropriate for what we're talking about today, is people settled far from their ancestral homelands. It's also the place where these people live. The movement, migration, and scattering of a people away from an established or ancestral homeland. And so, like, it'd be easy to hear this definition and say, you know, diaspora has nothing to do with Black History Month. And it's like, it has everything to do with it. It is. And it is like one, there's so many different types of diaspora. Like there's so much different communities around the world and migration of communities. So like it can apply to anything, not just to the African diaspora, which I'm going to focus on today. But it can apply to anything, and it's a really powerful, interesting topic. And the reason why I wanted to bring this term up first is I feel like even the term Black in American society is confusing for people, and so I want to like break it down very simply to understand like what that term even means, and then if we're talking about Black, like what does Black mean in a global sense? And that's looking at the diaspora is really important in understanding that like Black culture is not one specific type of culture somewhere or one type of stereotype that may be popularized because, you know, like I got into a little bit of an argument on Facebook, which I rarely do, but in certain topics, it's hard for me to avoid it. But this was like a year ago. It was quite a long time ago. And somebody had, you know, called out cultural appropriation. Like, why are you always trying to take Black culture and take it as your own? Like, all you white people feel like you know Black culture. And I felt like saying, well, what is Black culture? Because if you really look at the diaspora, it can range a lot of things. And so like, if you're just talking about people with Black skin, you can look at the distribution of that community among the globe. And it's surprising to know the majority of people with Black skin in the world live in rural places that have never been exposed to like pop Black culture. And so I just like find that really fascinating. I think it's like really interesting to think of that perspective versus just assuming that, you know, I know it's not directly related, and I know it's not something that's like usually associated in this conversation that I'm having today, but I just wanted to bring this up because I just think it's important. So now that we have that definition out, let's look at specifically the African diaspora. And this Wikipedia article that I'm looking at is probably my favorite Wikipedia article in existence. I discovered this article in that little Facebook debate that I got into because I was like, I need to find some evidence to back up what I'm trying to say here, is that like Black culture is not exclusively, you know, these specific stereotypes. It's like Black culture is something so much more than that, and so much more complex and diverse than just that. So in this article, let's see, I'll make sure I get the full article in here for you guys to see. So as we learned in the last bit in the dictionary, diaspora is like the spread of people from their ancestral land. So the total population, 140 million within the African diaspora. In the United States, there are almost 42 million members of the African diaspora. So you think about that. If we're just talking about America's Black history, which is the topic of today's talk, of course, let's look at that percentage of the diaspora that is actually here. So 42 million out of 140 million. 30%. So 30% of the world's African diaspora is in the US, by far the most. Then followed by Brazil, 14 million. Haiti, Colombia, France, Venezuela, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Jamaica, United Kingdom, Mexico, Canada, Spain, Italy, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Cuba, Germany, Peru, Trinidad, and it goes on. Australia, Mafelda, if you're here, 380,000 members of the African diaspora in Australia. 50,000 in Russia. Yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting to, oh, I'm sorry, music got changed up. I don't know how that got in there. All right, I like modern blues here. How thick is the tea? It's not that thick. It's not that thick. I'll let you see it. You see how thin it actually is? It's not thick. But it's rich. It's beautiful tea. All right. Okay, so it says the diaspora has continued for millennia, but historically, ethnographers, historians, politicians, and writers has used the term particularly to refer to the descendants of the West and Central Africans who were enslaved and shipped to the Americas via the Atlantic slave trade between 16th and 19th century, with the largest populations in Brazil, the United States, and Haiti. So yes, this is important to talk about the slave trade. And how, even scholars have directly, instead of just saying like, there's all types of diaspora, right? Of how people moved around and left their ancestral lands to live in other places. But, the African diaspora, like they directly cite the slave trade as being, what diaspora is. Of course, over the centuries it's changed and migration is happening for other reasons, but So scholars identify 4 circulatory phases of this migration out of Africa. The phase African diaspora gradually entered common usage in the term of the 21st century. So, okay, so here's the word. The word diaspora originates from the Greek, literally meaning scattering, which gained popularity in English in reference to the Jewish diaspora before being more broadly applied to other populations. So, yeah, there we go. That's that explanation that, it was first used for talking about that community. Less commonly, the term is being used in scholarship to refer to more recent immigration from sub-Saharan Africa. The African Union defines the African diaspora as consisting of people of native African origin living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship and nationality, and who are willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union. Huh. That's interesting. So what is the African Union? It's a continental union consisting of 55 member states located on the continent of Africa. So it's kind of like the European Union. Interesting. So they insinuate that diaspora implies some maintained connection to Africa, which is, it's so heartbreaking because for a lot of people within the African diaspora, they don't even know what the origins are of where their family came from, where they came from. And so it's kind of hard to be invested in contributing to the development of the content or even having any type of real connection to Africa. And the only reason why I know this is because I lived in Africa. I learned a native African language. And when I returned and would share that experience with my friends, especially with my Black friends, there was a disconnect there. And then people would kind of make jokes of oh, well, you're more African than I am. And it's that is so sad, not to say that I'm a good person for that experience that I had. That was just my experience. That was just my story. And nothing more than that. I'm not asking for anything more than that. That was just my story. But, that someone, yeah. I mean, I have my own issues with this. I don't know my origins, and I think that this is a common issue with folks in the U.S. I mean, the U.S. is pretty much exclusively a diaspora at this point. Even the Native Americans that were here first, also had to move away, so, or also had to change, and so that's also its own form of diaspora. But there is a movement now for reconnecting and not shaming the change, right? Because that was all consensual, and not in the case of the African diaspora, but other forms of diaspora, or somebody who has, consensually left their ancestral land to rebuild that connection, and not to shame what has evolved, what has become, but just to say, okay, this is what has become. And this is also the past, and it's important to understand that past. So yes, I'm very happy to be able to include this in this conversation with Black History Month, because I never hear this part included with it. So the African Union, the Constitutive Act declares that it shall invite and encourage the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of our continent in the building of the African Union. Beginning in the 8th century, Arabs took African slaves from the central and eastern portions of the African continent. And this is actually something that I'm familiar with. When I lived in Niger, which is now a Muslim country. It's a Muslim population. Hey, Atlas. Yeah, I would like to talk to you. Thanks for coming by my stream. Welcome to my tea table. having an important conversation now about the African diaspora. I mean, this is Black History Month, and I'm using my platform today on Mondays. I always do a Dignified hospitality segment where I talk about how we can bring dignity into our food systems. And I wanted to use today's conversation to talk about Black history in our food. And so right now I'm not talking about food at all, but just very elementary, basic topics around diaspora, which is a topic that is gaining in popularity. People are talking a lot about it. It's being applied a lot in several different cultures, but I wanted to apply it to conversation about Black history. Yeah, Atlas, I want to connect with you. You didn't let me know how I could connect with you before, and I had asked T-Fens to connect me, but yeah, so she gave me your Discord name, so I will connect with you on Discord, and we can chat there. But we can always chat here as well. Today I am drinking a beautiful black tea from the second flush, the summer flush in Darjeeling, India. The name of this tea is Blood Moon. The reason why it's called Blood Moon is because the family harvested and processed the tea on the evening of the blood moon in the summer of 2018. So they withered the tea in the full moon, which of course was red for part of the night. So someone was joking about how this is a red tea for that reason, but it's a red tea because it is a red tea. Beautiful, well-processed black tea here. T-Sleuth, why do you think that you don't relate to your European origins? Is that I don't relate with my origins because that wasn't a value that was ingrained in my childhood and my upbringing. My grandparents on my father's side immigrated from Europe during the war, and so that was a very, conflicted time, and there was just so much work to be done as far as like the American dream and making things happen, and so my family lost touch with that, and I think that's a very common story. Yeah, so T-Sleuth, maybe that's the same way. And I think it's a cool thing if you have the interest, like I have the interest. I do want to connect with it. I am going to invest the time and the resources into reconnecting with those origins. So Charles, you asked an important question. Did we have a choice where or color we were born? We don't. Just like we don't have a choice if we're raised into a family that's not connected with our diaspora. But, into adulthood, when we have those abilities and resources, we, of course, can choose to connect with it. So I basically want to help normalize that. I know I won't single-handedly do that, but if I'm just one person planting the seed here and here and here. Oh, sorry. The mods on Twitch are weird. So that's what's weird is that I don't even have like a moderator set up on my Twitch. So I don't even know how it is doing that. I'm sorry about that, Eric. Maybe you can try to type in your response again. But I did see the response. Yeah, I wasn't brought up that way. And I relate with that. Atlas Brood, what are your thoughts on diaspora? I know that's a broad question I just threw out there, but you are welcome to give any comments. And it could be related to the African diaspora, or it could be related to anything. But yeah, it's pretty serious. I mean, like, let's look at the Wikipedia page for other diasporas and see. It's like, maybe I'll look up the Chinese diaspora. Okay, yeah, I'll define it. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Wikipedia does not call China's diaspora a diaspora. Calls it something completely different. That's interesting. Okay, so to define it, here, I'll take us back to the dictionary. Going back to the dictionary. Here we are. All right, so the first definition, and this is the original use of the word in the English language, was for describing the Jewish populations living outside of Palestine. Anything to do with the people, the colonies, the places, anything outside of Palestine was the diaspora. That was the original use of the word. But now this word comes to mean a lot more. It pretty much meaning people settled far from their ancestral homelands. The place where these people live, or the movement, migration, or scattering of people away from the established or ancestral homeland. Right? So now in what context? Could be anything. You know, I threw that question out with no context at all. If you want some kind of context, I can... Yeah. Let's see. Well, maybe this has it. The beginnings. Until recently, diaspora was thought to be a fairly new word in English to describe a very old thing. Specifically around the Jewish people outside of Palestine after the Babylonian exile thousands of years ago. However, recent research has found that the word is quite a bit older than previously thought. It could be found as far back as 1594 in the translation of a fruitful commentary upon the 12 small prophets. This scattered abroad the lose as it... But this was still talking about the Jewish community. So yeah, here we go. Here's your etymology. Greek dispersion, from diasperian, to scatter, from dia, sperian, to sow. Interesting, huh? Okay, so here it is. I just looked up Chinese diaspora in Wikipedia, and they don't have that article. Instead, they have the article overseas Chinese, which I find interesting, because I kind of thought that over the past decade or so, this term of diaspora is started to be applied to all types of migrations of people. Yeah, so you say ancestral homeland. And so that's why on that definition, I saw that, right? It's not just ancestral land. Scattering of people away from an established or ancestral. So yeah, I know ancestral is kind of a tricky word because it's like, you know, but established kind of opens that up. So like if you're, you know, from like a nomadic community, like let's say, for example, the minority tribes responsible for the beautiful pu'er tea that we love so much. They're not originally from the mountains in Yunnan. And if you travel to mountains in other areas, in India and Burma and Thailand, you'll see a lot of commonalities between the cultures, even though those communities have been established in those places for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's almost as if like the diaspora will evolve. It's like, yeah, the original diaspora may have been, the strongest story I've heard is Mongolian nomadic tribes that had moved, and then made settlements. And once they make those settlements and those settlements get established, then any migration from that settlement would then become its own diaspora. So you say, did all humans not spread through the globe through a few origin points? More cultural dispersion is important. Yeah, so diaspora is important. Like, we're not trying to say it's not important. It's just it's a thing, and I feel like it's an important topic to cover when you're talking about Black history in the United States, because a lot of people like disconnect these things. A lot of people like associate the term of Black or Black culture exclusively with the American Black experience, which is very different from the Black experience in a lot of places. And so, yeah, I'm specifically looking at the African diaspora. And it's interesting because now that diaspora is starting to create new established communities where there's migration happening, there's disbursement happening from those new established communities. And so that's why I believe, I am not expert on this. This is not my place to talk about it, but if everybody is welcome to talk about it, like I want this platform to be everybody can talk about it, that there's a nuance between using the term African American versus using the term Black, because there are people that do not identify, their story with the African diaspora, because their story is connected from a completely new established culture, and so their diaspora is something different, something totally different. So yeah, it's a cool thing to think about. Do you guys have any experience with that outside of like research that you've done online, but maybe like firsthand stories where you learned that there was a difference between the term African American and Black? Atlas Brood, are you based in the United States? Are you based in Europe? Are you based in Asia? I'd like to know more about your perspective. Please don't feel pressured to give any details about your perspective. You can give generalizations. That's perfectly fine. I appreciate that. We are interconnected to a point that we can't really be without some form of diaspora. That's true. I mean, and that's what the term means. And that's why it's like only in modern times have we started to apply this term beyond just one specific community, that it's like there's going to be an infinite amount of diaspora. My view is that any culture is my culture. And that's it's a great view. What is your viewpoint? And this is going to segue us into the article that I want to read today. And the whole point of this stream is, what is your viewpoint? If this, and I agree with this, my view is any culture is my culture, because we are all so interconnected. Like, and if we accept that, then we can move on within that. But what is your viewpoint on respectfully approaching cultures? And the idea of cultural appropriation, which is a very common term that folks in the tea community have been talking about over the past couple of years. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So, Tisla, you guys did have a discussion about this in your high school? That's great. That's forward thinking. I never had these discussions in my high school. We never talked about it at all. Okay, so you grew up in Asia. I see. So that's good. So you do have that perspective. A lot of people don't have that perspective. A lot of people have the perspective of, where they are. And that's perfectly fine too. You know what I mean? It's perfectly fine. I celebrate that, actually. I don't criticize it. So many of my friends, especially like my world traveling friends, my cultural, seeking friends, my tea appreciation friends, like they like kind of demonize people that never leave their hometown. I don't like doing that. Just like I don't like to demonize people that don't get like advanced degree education. I think we're all fully capable of being wise people, regardless of those tools that can help. International travel, seeing life from other perspectives certainly helps and like skyrockets you into like a better understanding of these things. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of beauty and humility and just being and able to live a life of love without. But it is definitely an advantage to be able to travel around the world, learn other languages, learn other cultures. All right, so thank you, Atlas. You give us a good example. I'm going to read this. Take this example. Tomatoes are an integral part of Italian culture. However, they aren't native to Europe. They came from South America. Or common stir-fry ingredients, a lot of them aren't from China. Cultural appropriation is when it's done without respect of the heritage behind it. However, every culture is appropriated in some sense. Culture isn't created generally in the echo chamber. My view is that one should approach all culture with warmth and curiosity. That's a great way to put it. Looking down on individuals isn't good in any situation. It's true. That's it. Yeah, I don't like to demonize anything. I don't like to look down on someone or demonize anything for how they are. And I mean, if they're being hateful, if they're actively being hateful, I definitely think there's a place to to talk with somebody about that and share your opinion that they could be doing better. But yeah, I don't like talking down to anybody because of their position unless they're actively being hateful. Actively being violent. I think that's a better word for it because hate is an extreme word. And violent can be an extreme word, but it's not. Like, I'm talking about violence even in, like, and not just, like, physical violence, but even violence in your thoughts, violence in your ideas, violence in your intent. Yeah. I can say that one can have different perspectives without leaving their home. However, nothing banishes biases and prejudice as far as travel. Well, that's interesting. Nothing banishes biases and prejudices as far as travel. That's an interesting way to say. But, at the same time, I mean, I served in the Peace Corps in Niger, West Africa, and I came back. And within 4 years, I was starting this business, which is like my business that I do. I import tea on behalf of small tea growers around the world and distribute it to businesses. So I'm almost like a liaison for these cultural gates of liaisoning between an American tea business or a European tea business or a South American tea business to approach that cultural gate with respect and humility so that they don't appropriate anything. I've been doing that work for almost a decade now. And there are some people that I served in the Peace Corps with that have also started their own businesses, finding unique, exotic foreign products, importing them and selling them under fancy labels with storytelling of the people behind it. And they're still doing it in a very disrespectful, oppressive way. You know what I mean? So I don't know if travel absolutely banishes it. Like, it takes a little bit more than that. It takes like an open heart as well. But travel, it helps. It is like the ultimate goal. And not just travel, but immersion in those cultures. So like most like tourism, cruises and those types of things are not really the travel I'm talking about. More like you're going to spend some time and just sit with people and listen. It's very powerful. Yeah, we're all born into a culture. And then we all have the ability to evolve our culture and influence our culture by the interactions that we have. Besides your DNA, you're right. Yeah, we're born with our DNA, born with our culture, born with our history, born with our diaspora that we have. We had no choice. We were just born, and we're in the place that we're in, you know? All right, so Alice says one is born in a culture, but one doesn't adopt the culture. There's a dilution of cultural diversity happening right now in our world, partly as a result of how interconnected everything is. Dilution of cultural diversity. So do you think that we need to put in extra work to restore the diversity? And I totally agree with you. And it's like weird, like with modern technology is like making that diversity homogenized in a very weird way. So I say that like the village in Africa that I lived in, for the most part, their culture has not been homogenized. They're not acting like Western style. Like you go to like other more developed cultures around the world, and there is this like Americanization, such as a McDonald's and a Starbucks over there, and like, you know what I mean? Like there are definite like fast homogenizations of culture happening, but in this village I lived in, there was hardly any homogenization, but there was like really weird ones where it just like shot them up, like, and it just like contrasts with their culture so heavily. And the big one was cell phones, right? So in this village I lived in, I was there from 2006 to 2008. And during that time, the Nokia, cell phones had just been released. Prior to that, there were no landlines because, this was like the middle of nowhere in the bush, as they say. There was no infrastructure of telephone lines running around connecting to everybody. So like the community had never had access to telephone communication. And then overnight, cell phone towers could get popped up that could cover a whole area. So like a lot more faster and efficient infrastructure to build than the landline telephones. And then, but no dial-up internet, no DSL internet. But then like overnight, they've got a smartphone with like all the internet at their hand. It's like weird. It's like really weird how that had happened. And another place where it happens a lot is in diet. It's like, for the most part, they ate the same diet that their families had been eating for, I would say, like 800 to 1,000 years. Exact same diets. Except for in the past like 5 years or so, they have like processed packaged cookies and processed foods that just like are entering their way in. It wasn't like a natural kind of organic evolution of their culture. So that was just kind of a weird thing. All right, I'm going to catch up with chat. Westernized travel doesn't do much. I traveled along the incense trade route in some areas that I thought would be very scary. However, in the same areas, I met some people with an orange grove that they just offered me crates of it as a gift. Oh, that's nice. Those are the good stories. I think we need to preserve our heritage. Most countries aren't doing much to protect it. Japan takes care of it, for example. You're right. Japan does actively, like the Japanese government does actively support preservation of heritage. But yeah, like look at tea. Japanese tea is probably like one of the most heartbreaking stories, like in real time. Like we're currently in the situation of Japan losing its tea heritage because of the convenience and the bottled ready to drink green tea that has just become so popular. And then from a business perspective, it works a lot better for a business. So it's been the culture, like young people, like I saw an article one time where these sociologists interviewed young people in Japan, and they found the majority of them didn't even know what a kyusu was. Like they didn't know the name of it. Like they were shown an image of it, and they were asked to say what it is, and like they didn't even know it was a kyusu. And they said something like, "Oh, that's like my grandma's thing. That's like my grandparents' thing." So it's interesting. Japanese government certainly does do a lot of work in preserving heritage. And that's why Japanese tea culture is the longest running heritage of tea, even beyond China, right? Because China's had some breaks here and there. And then for the most of Chinese tea history, it wasn't like a mass cultural thing. It was a very niche thing for, exclusively certain communities of people. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Atlas. But in Asia, for example, there's so many arts dying out daily. Instruments that were created for thousands of years with 2 people left who know how to make it, for example. It's true. It's so true. And I think that this is a relevant story. Like, I know I'm talking about Black history today, but we're telling these stories from the perspective of our experiences. And Atlas, thank you so much for answering my question. I know I didn't give you a specific prompt on the question. I just threw out a very generalized thing, but you've done an incredible job of answering my question. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. But by telling the story from a different perspective, it can shed light that within the African diaspora, in the Black story, the Black experience, it is important to know those histories, to encourage people to explore their own diaspora, and even if there's pain involved, especially in the story of the African diaspora, which, like in that article, it specifically says, here, I'll show it. It specifically says, this is coming from Wikipedia. This is the Wikipedia article on African diaspora. It particularly says that in the case of the African diaspora, it's pretty much exclusively referring to descendants of the West and Central Africans who were enslaved and shipped to the Americas. So yeah, there's some deeply enlaced trauma there. So connecting with your diaspora is not going to be a happy, friendly, enjoyable experience. There's going to be a lot of pain to go through, but it's connected to this preservation of heritage. So Atlas, you had asked me a question. Let me go look at that. It's up to the government to value their heritage in that way. I get it. So yeah, you think it's the government's responsibility. I certainly think the government has some responsibility in that. Like, not that they have responsibility, they have influence in that. But at the end of the day, it's all of our own responsibilities to do what's best for us and for the world around us. I think it will become a sort of specific thing that will be appreciated. So do you think, Atlas, like, that governments are not only just historians? Like this article in Wikipedia here, says that it's the ethnographers, is that how you say it? Ethnographers, historians and politicians and writers that started to use that term. But like, do you think that this is going to become like an important project for governments to take on? I think that'd be cool if they did, to at least acknowledge it. I'm glad, Atlas, that you have the hope that Japanese tea culture isn't going anywhere, because I agree with you. It's not going to go anywhere. It's like there's always going to be some string attached to it, but the mass culture of it has certainly changed. It's like for a very long time, sencha, just simple sencha tea consumption was a very common part of Japanese culture, and now it's not. Now it's in the bottle. They're drinking the itoen. Charles, thank you. Humility teaches you to live by feeling as empathetic. For me, humility is like the number one resource that I need to stay focused on maintaining and utilizing in my work and everything in my life. I had advice given to me, unsolicited advice when you're a teenager, right? And the advice that was given to me was, if you ever find yourself in a moment of success, you should look back on your past, or you should look back on everything you did that got you to that moment of success and focus on continuing doing that. And so I listened to that. And as, I got into college and started my career and then did the Peace Corps experience and started my business, I constantly thought about that. And so anytime I would win an award or get some kind of recognition or complete some milestone of success, or what I thought was success, I would stop. I would consciously stop and say, okay, what did I do? And it's usually a very complex, interconnected story of what you did. It's not one thing, but it would always boil down to one word: humility. Because I was humble and I just listened and I, opened myself up and was vulnerable with this person, they were willing to do this thing with me, which then I was able to connect with this other person, and that's how the success happened, So, humility is huge. The thing is, it is our story, the human story. If a government doesn't create value for it, it won't be appreciated. Our national parks, for example, would be parking lots if the government didn't preserve them. Protecting our heritage, yes. That's interesting. Atlas, do you spend much time in Japan? And how many young people go to Ryokan? I don't know any young people in Japan that go to Ryokan. Hi, Shiloh. Thanks for stopping by. Currently we're talking about diaspora. Specifically, the reason why I'm bringing up the topic today is because in relation with Black History Month, with my Dignified Hospitality series, I am looking at the Black history stories of our food. And very soon I will be popping up an article about specific stories of Black history of some foods that have become commonplace staples of American culture, yet maybe untold of its origin. Is coffee going away in Japan or the rest of the world? No. Tea is in second wave. Coffee is in third wave. Yeah. Well, tea production in Japan is declining. Profitability and economic opportunity for tea farmers in Japan is exponentially decreasing year by year. So, there are ryokans for the tourists to enjoy, the heritage of Japanese culture. But tea farmers, the backbone of Japanese tea culture, are heavily oppressed right now. Heavily. I think right now the average loss per kilo of tea produced in Japan is about 25 cents a kilo. Loss. That means a farmer, the cost of them to maintain their garden and to harvest their product, process it, and bring it to market. The itoens and the sapporos and the kirins of Japan have all controlled the price of tea, the wholesale price of tea, to make it a losing business proposition for farmers. And the farmers, I've lived in Japan. I lived in Kyoto in a small village there where I think like 80% of the people living there are tea farmers. And of course, they're still farming. They're in their 60s and 70s still farming. Of course, their children are not there. They've told their children, get the heck out of here. Like, go get jobs in the city. Don't do this. Like, you lose money doing this. But there's so much heritage and pride in the tea making, tea growing, and tea making process in Japan that they continue to do it. It's just part of their culture. It's part of their heritage. We make tea. We pride ourselves on making good tea. Unfortunately, that mass culture of ready-to-drink tea bottles does not appreciate that. And there are a lot of I shouldn't say wild, feral is the more appropriate term. There are a lot of feral tea gardens in Japan because of this problem. So yes, definitely the tea heritage in Japan is under heavy, what's the word? Jeopardy right now. But this popularization of tea that you say, we're in the midst of a tea you're right. You're absolutely right. The fact that like I'm sitting here on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram Live, and can talk for hours about tea and people are interested in, yes, that's a testament. There is a popularization of tea happening, and I believe that popularization will help that heritage rebound. So I agree with you. The heritage is not going anywhere, but it is severely under jeopardy right now. Yeah, I lived in Japan for 6 months. And I've gone back several times since I started this business right after I finished that work I was doing. And now go back often. Spend a lot of time in Shizuoka and Fukuoka, as well as Kyoto. So Charles, in Japan, you go anywhere outside of Japan? Yeah, so Charles, you can check out my website. And you can see all of the farmers in our network. You can see all the teas in our catalog and the farmers in our network. You can see that they are all from all over the place. And I've visited all of them. Every spring I do a what I call the Amazing Tea Race, where I travel around to all the different places where the farmers work and document the story of the first flush. It usually takes about 2 months or so. Hey, Tranquility, thanks for stopping by. What were you wondering about? Were you wondering about Japanese tea? Is that what you're curious about? Yeah, so I've been to dozens of tea growing regions throughout Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, China, Taiwan, Indonesia, Japan, of course in the United States. So that's why I know Donnie Barrett there in Fairhope, Alabama. Yeah, and I spend time in all those places. And Charles, you're on YouTube. So if you go look at my YouTube videos, you'll see videos from all over the world. I shot all the videos, all the content on our website and on our YouTube page is all content that we shot with this very camera that I'm using now for streaming to you guys. Cheers. No, I don't think it's too strong of a word, Atlas. Jeopardy is the exact perfect word to use. Because they're losing money. You like to see people losing money? I'm always considered a foreigner. I'm a foreigner wherever I am. I have no hometown, unfortunately. I'm one of those people, and there's a lot of people like me that were born in one place, and then maybe the family moved to another place within a couple of years, and then moved to other places throughout the years, and then Yeah, the longest I've lived in one place at one time, it's probably been here, actually. I've been living in Vegas for 8 years now. So I guess that would be it. But I would hardly call Vegas my hometown. I'm used to being a foreigner. Your grandfather was in Japan in the 50s and 60s? Was that through military? 50s and 60s for sencha production in Japan was a pretty good time. That was a good time for the farmers. That was a good time for tea culture in Japan. That was a good time for the farmers. Everybody was profiting. Everybody was happy. The current marketing system, which started around that time, Japan Agriculture, was like a centralized marketing agency. It still exists. I keep using past tense, but it still exists. That system used to be very efficient for the farmers, but now it's become a tool for those large buyers to do this like price collusion essentially. And so now it's actually become a hindrance. And I think jeopardy is exactly the right word. If you like Atlas, I could put you in touch with some of the farmers that I work with in Japan, and they could tell you, they could tell you about the Japanese tea industry. But yeah, the awareness and growth of Japanese tea around the world is certainly going to help it. I always joke that like the future of Japanese heritage is reliant upon hipsters in the Western world. Because it's like these cycles, you know, like things popularize in one place and then popularize in the other and cycle around and cycle around. But, you know, right now, like loose leaf tea brewing, high quality tea enjoyment is not in fashion in Japan right now. It's pretty much in fashion in the US, yes, which is good, really good. But yeah, 20 years ago in America, no one knew what sencha was. Even 10 years ago. I have a Yixing, but my favorite brewing vessel is the Gaiwan. This Gaiwan was made by my friends in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's really beautiful. It's pretty heavy, but I like heavy ceramics because they don't get as hot, you know? Like the heat from the hot water brewing doesn't transfer to the lid, so it's a lot more comfortable to handle this Gaiwan. And plus it was made by my friends. You are right, Atlas. Like this thing about, you know, Japanese tea heritage in jeopardy is not just associated with tea. It's the whole kind of out of fashion traditional arts. Because like tea, like tea ceremony, like chado or sado in Japanese culture in the 50s and 60s, it was mandatory curriculum for young women. So all young women learned about tea. They learned how to make a bowl of matcha. They learned about tea. And now that class, you know, it's definitely not a mandatory curriculum anymore. And there are still some Chanoyu schools, which is great that there's support for that, but it's definitely like an elective type of a thing. And I think they're very popular among Western students versus Japanese students. Yeah, I don't know. All the farmers that I've met want their children to farm with them. At least the farmers that I work with. They want their kids farming with them. So, like the Japanese tea farmers that I work with that do want their children to farm with them and to pass that on, they are working their asses off to pave a new path so that the business can be profitable for them. Anybody else who is just selling their tea through the conventional centralized marketing agency where like the average price for good quality sencha is less than $5 a kilo. Like if you're a farmer and you go sell it, like you're guaranteed to sell your entire stock. Like that's the assurance that this centralized marketing agency gives. This is the Japanese government. It's like you're guaranteed to sell all of your product that you bring to them. But the price is going to be pretty low. It's less than $5 a kilo. So the farmers that I work with are like, our product is much more valuable than this. Like, so they have to pave a whole new path. And not only is it a whole new path, like technically it's illegal. The Japanese government has it written in their laws that you're required to sell all of your product, all of your produce to this centralized co-op. But there's not a whole lot of policing going on with that. And so, you know, the people that I work with are all of the like e-commerce websites of tea farms in Japan that you can find. Those are all kind of illegal operations, but they don't get in trouble for it. Those are just the farms, you know, like companies that are offering all the types of Japanese teas and like most of the time they actually don't source directly from the farmer. They source from, they're a member of that government co-op. I remember one time I was in Yame, and this was when I was still pretty new in the business. This was in 2014. And we were in Yame, in the city of Yame, visiting, you know, a farmer friend that I have that's just about like 3 or 4 hours outside of Yame. And there was this old traditional tea shop in Yame, and it was gorgeous. It was so charming and gorgeous. And I was like, let's spend some time here. So with my brother, and we spent a couple hours meeting the shop owner, chatting with him, telling about our business and what we're doing. And he was just amazed. He was like, you're American, you speak Japanese, and you're coming here to buy tea and meet tea farmers? I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, no, see, I've got a good deal. Like, I'm part of this club, and, like, we can buy the tea for really cheap. You should buy the tea from me, because I can get it really cheap through this club. Well, that club was that government co-op I was talking about. And it just, like, it boiled my blood to hear him so proud about how cheap he could get the tea, because I'm like, have you ever talked to a farmer about how they feel about it? And he's like, I don't talk to farmers. I don't need to. I just go to the club and, you know, all the farmers bring the tea there and then we get to buy the tea for really cheap. I was like, damn, that's hard. Okay, good question, Atlas. Your question is, what has taken you from Japanese tea culture or even Chado to bring you into your approach towards tea? Okay, so I'll tell you my story. I started this business. I started my education into tea and my whole journey into tea, not as a connoisseur. Like, I didn't drink a good cup of tea and say, oh, this is my life now, I want to study it. No, I actually were in the reverse direction. I entered into the study of tea with a pre-established ethos, not about tea, but about food. I'm a food scientist. I worked in the food industry, and then I was in the Peace Corps working with rural farmers. And I realized how important it is to rebuild the connection between production and consumption. Not to say that everybody needs to become a farmer, because I know that's impossible, unreasonable, and not a goal that I should try to pursue. But there are ways in our food systems, supply chains, general food systems, that we can improve and restore that connection. Through transparency, through connection with the farmers and the consumers, like letting that information be shared between them, letting those stories be shared between them. And so I went into my study of tea with that already in place. And so it's interesting, like I came in as this kind of development worker trying to restore culture, restore heritage, and understand those things and integrate those things into the business. And had no idea that I was selling or getting involved in this like high quality luxury business. It wasn't until maybe like it was probably like 3 years into my work of studying tea where I finally realized, oh, I'm dealing with like a luxury product. I'm dealing with a high quality product. I need to be talking in terms of quality and of connoisseurship versus social justice and all of these things. So that's my story. I hope that gives you an idea about like my approach to tea. Like I did not become a connoisseur and then decide to pursue the business. I like started to pursue the business out of the sake of helping these farmers that I've met. Because I was doing my internship in Kyoto, and we started a nonprofit called the International Tea Farms Alliance. And through that nonprofit, funded by a grant by the Japanese government after the tsunami, this was after the tsunami in Tohoku, the government was dispersing funds for projects that were giving an international voice to Japanese heritage, and pride in Japanese heritage. And so we started this nonprofit so that we could host a World Tea Farm Festival in the village in Wazuka and Kyoto, where I was. And so that was pretty much my job for most of the 6 months that I was there, was coordinating all of the communication between these different tea farmers in India, Korea, Indonesia, China, Taiwan. And they all came to Tokyo. And I met them at the airport, collected everybody, arranged all of their visas and their hotel rooms. We did a food X, so we did an expo together. We had a booth and educated about teas from around the world. This was back in 2011. And then we all went back to the village and hosted this event. So in that process, I met all of these tea farmers. And they were like my buddies. Like, these are just independent tea farmers, all young, because like they're forward thinking. They're like, we got to use technology. We got to use social networks to do this work. They were the ones that were like, Elise, you should go back to America and start a for-profit and help us build cleaner supply chains to get our high quality tea into the market. I was like, okay, I know nothing about tea, but I'll figure it out. And here I am. Oh, thank you. It is a nice guy one. Thanks. How would tea leaf? Oh, hey, Baked and Lay, what's up, man? Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. Much love to you. How would tea leaves fare in a salad? Well, interesting that you ask that. In Burma or Myanmar, they have like a very popular cultural dish it's a salad with pickled tea leaves, and they pickle the leaves while they're still fresh, because there is a fair amount of tea production in Burma. So they have the fresh leaves and they pickle them and they make a nice tea with peanuts and of course different greens. It's a really good salad. So if you have a Burmese restaurant wherever you are, that's where you can try it. And Burmese restaurants have become quite popular, especially in larger cities. I don't know where you are, Baked and Lay, but you can look it up, Burma. If you're in the Bay Area, there's a really popular one called Burma Superstar. And actually, I believe that Burma Superstar is currently importing the pickled tea leaf, and you can buy the kit to make the salad at home, from anywhere. It's all preserved, and you can make the salad at home. So you can look that up. I should actually order some and try it on stream. I think that would make for a really good stream. Talk about that. But I mean, you could try. I have some friends that like that dish so much that they'll take their spent leaves like this. They'll take this leaf and they'll dress it. They'll pickle it with the vinegar and sugar and whatever else. And maybe marinate that for a little bit to let the tea leaf soak it all in. And then they'll make the salad with that pickled spent leaf. But the Burmese salad, they make the pickled tea from fresh leaf. They don't make it from spent leaf. Oh, thank you, Atlas. Thank you for that clarification. Cornbread is awesome. Where did cornbread come from? I had heard when I lived in Japan, and some of the older women were telling me about their education. They had said that tea ceremony was a part of that etiquette class. It's just like my mom said, back when she was in school, home economics was a required class, which by the time I got to school was not. I'm not fluent anymore, but I used to be fluent. Certainly when I lived there, I was fluent. Every time people hear my Japanese, they're like, "Oh, you're so good. You're so good at Japanese." I'm like, "No, I need to practice." I actually saw that there's a Twitch stream that does like casual conversational Japanese practice together. So I might spend some time there working on my Japanese. Yeah, my graduate degree I got in Hawaii from the University of Hawaii was a Japanese focused MBA. So it was a 2-year program. I spent 3 semesters at the university and then 1 semester doing the internship in Japan. That's why I was on the tea farm in Kyoto. And so for the 3 semesters I was in Hawaii, I was doing pretty intensive Japanese language training. It was intense. It was 12 hours of class time per week and then your homework and stuff on top of that. But unfortunately, because it was an MBA and they were kind of tailoring us for the corporate world, like the Tokyo corporate world, the Japanese that we learned was the Keigo. So, in Japanese language, there's basically 3 different types of language that you can use. And so I learned Keigo is like the professional business Japanese, which is way different than the Kyoto dialect, like the Kyoto countryside dialect, which is what I actually ended up being integrated into. So I almost had to like relearn Japanese when I got to Wazuka. But yeah, my Japanese language got pretty good. And when I visit now, it's good enough for me to get around for sure. For sure. I'm grateful for that experience. My personality, I feel, did not vibe well with Japanese culture, which is fine. We don't have to vibe with all cultures. But I'm grateful for that experience. It was an incredible learning experience, and it was by far the coldest living experience I've ever had. I've been so used to my entire life living in very warm climates, warm places. So a winter in a farmhouse in Kyoto was certainly an experience in itself. Jim, what is up? So happy to see you, Jim. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great day at work. Uplifting, inspiring. You have a Yixing red clay. Have you seasoned it with any particular tea, or do you just brew all teas in that one Yixing? Oh, the Zumba Pearls. You got the Zumba Pearls, Jim. Good for you. That's a great tea. You're really going to enjoy it. Actually, Jim, if you're ever in my stream, like after you receive your tea, if you're ever in my stream, I'll brew it. I'll brew it while you're watching, and we can kind of drink it together if you like. I can tell you about the tea. All right. We got a special guest. Bitcoin in the house. Bitcoin in the house. All right, Bitcoin, have a seat, boy. You ready? You ready to be on stream? Say hello to everybody. He's like, I want that pizza. I smell pizza. Get out my business. What are you doing in my business? Get out my business. Just sit there and look pretty. Say hello to everybody. Who's that? Who's over there? Over there. Who's over there? Tell him hello. And the masala chai, that'll be a good experience for you. You can make some nice decadent milk tea with that. How much work is it to grow tea? A lot. They're your babies. You're right. It's a lot of work, but then not a lot of work. That's always been. I know. Oh, you want to see the pupper? Handsome puppy. There he is. Handsome boy. There's a lot of work. But then there isn't, like my tea farming friends are like, yeah, once you do all the work. So it's like, when it's time to work, it's time to work, like tea production, like during the first and second flush, you're working like around the clock. But then, there's other times of the year after you've set everything up and set up all of the weeding and the pruning and the fertilizing, the tea is very resilient. It's just going to do its own work, and it's going to be just fine. So it's not much work, and it is a lot of work. My man, Bitcoin. Let's see. I'll get back to my social eating. Oh, Shiloh, I'm glad. I'm glad you like Bitcoin. Yeah, the drum and bass. I'm trying to play Delta Blues today, and I'm playing some playlist on SoundCloud, and every now and then it pops in some drum and bass. It's like, where did that come from? Hey, Garrett, good to see you. Good to see you. Bitcoin gives you a little paw wave there. Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of stuff today. We've been covering a lot of things today. Started out talking about the concept of diaspora and like the spreading and scattering of cultures and people around the world. And I'm bringing this up in context of Black History Month because today's Dignified Hospitality segment. Oh, good. Shiloh, had you never heard my tea story before? I feel like I've told the story a million times, and I'm always happy to tell it more. But it's always kind of hard to know who's heard the story or hasn't heard the story. But we have a friend on Twitch here, Atlas Brood, very knowledgeable, experienced in tea. Not just in tea, but it seems very experienced in cultural integration and cultural diversity. So we've been having a good chat on Twitch, and I needed to provide some context of my story with tea so that they would understand. Hold on, I gotta try plug my phone in real quick. Bitcoin, tell him a joke. Bitcoin, tell him a joke. Tell him a good joke. Over here, tell him a good joke. You hear any good jokes, Bitcoin? All right, I do have an article to share with us today. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I started a little late tonight, so it's okay. It's okay. So let's get to the article. Bitcoin, stop shaking. It's not cold. It is not cold at all. All right, so I found an article in National Geographic titled "Who Owns Southern Food?" So I figured that this would be a good topic to go over on this. Garrett, Bitcoin's got all the good jokes. That's right. He's like, did you hear about the one about the Chihuahua and the pizza? Give it to me. Bitcoin. Oh, you haven't heard about my educational background? Yeah, man, I got a lot of education. And looking forward to more. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit. Thank you. Yeah, so this is an article in the National Geographic, but National Geographic, titled "Who Owns Southern Food?" So I was searching out, an article that would have compiled a list of different stories, kind of untold stories of the origins of, certain American food cultures that, kind of have untold Black origins. And so this article came up. I know that it's a common theme in this conversation around cultural appropriation within the restaurant scene or within the food scene. Certain Southern dishes have interesting, deep stories that are not told. So I wanted to look into that today. And this article is from December 4th, 2015. So this is not like... Oh, Atlas, thank you so much. It has been an interesting chat. It's always an interesting chat at my tea table, and I am so happy that you came, and we're open and welcoming to talk about these topics, because, sometimes tea people... Bitcoin, can you stop? Stop, please. Sometimes people, especially tea people, like mindful tea people, they find that they want to just focus on the tea. They think it's most important. Let's just focus on the tea. All these other things are unrelated. And I think it's very important to talk about these things and to bring up the relations and the connections between everything. So I appreciate you sticking around, contributing so much to the chat. You've been awesome. Thank you so much. And I look forward to chatting more. I always bring up these kind of topics. And it's like the longer time goes, the more empowered I feel about the necessity of talking about these things. Thank you, Atlas. Thank you so much for being here today. Bitcoin and I love you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see you next time you come around the tea table. When it comes to food and cooking, the American South is hot. Yet the stories and experiences of African Americans have been largely left out of the conversation. It is a type of cultural appropriation or just a sign of the times. Yeah, I mean, who knows who owns it, and I look forward, like, once I finish this article, I look forward to seeing, what we feel about that question of who owns it. But you're right, definitely want to eat it. It's good stuff. We should appreciate it and understand its stories. And so that's what we're doing today. So Atlas, I hope you have a great night. Thank you again for stopping by. Bitcoin, you want some more pizza? Scarf it. Scarf it, boy. When I talk to a friend who is a white lifestyle doyen, what is that? I'll have to look over it. About the notion of cultural appropriation in food, she says that I'm being too sensitive. After all, slavery was 1,000,000 years ago and people don't have maids and cooks anymore. Why hang on to the old stuff? She tells me that Southern food is in a much better place now because it is mainstreamed. As you can imagine, saying this to a black woman doesn't go over well. It was like she was saying, fiddle-de-dee, cultural appropriation is good. For whom? Yeah, so this is interesting. So this is from, 6 years ago, which is good. I actually, on purpose found an article from some time ago because it's interesting to put that in perspective, like how this conversation has changed in time, because now there's a lot more patience, especially in journalism. There's a lot more patience and people have stopped saying, oh, that's too sensitive. Like, you're being too sensitive to care about that. You're just, it's not that important. Like, this is old history. We should forget about it. Like, you're not seeing that anymore because people have learned that that's not the correct response. That's not the correct way of thinking about it. So let's continue. Bitcoin, come eat it over here because you've already made the mess here. Chew it good. In October of this year, Francis Lamb wrote an in-depth, this is back in 2015, an in-depth cover story for the New York Times Magazine, Edna Lewis and the Black Roots of American Cooking. He skillfully captures the life and times of this African-American grande dame of Southern food, bringing her art to thousands who may have never heard of her. Lamb says that until Lewis wrote The Taste of Country Cooking in 1976, Southerners, both black and white, were apologetic about the food about the food of the roots, but Lewis created a new lens that gave the food elegance and lifted up as not just a part of the South's history, but as part of American culture. Yet, for the most part, Lewis, who died in 2006, remains a nameless, faceless piece of the Southern food culture for all except a small few in the rarefied culinary know. As this chef and author, and then Lewis on the left with American restaurant critic Gail Green. That's a cool picture. So how do American treasures like Lewis and the role that Black cooks have played in shaping the conversation on food in this country get lost? Some would say that's what has happened in cultural appropriation over generations. You do, Charles? Do you know about them? Who do you, for who? Others argue that there is no reason for distinction, as Southern food belongs to region, not a race or ethnicity. But as Lewis said in an interview back in 1992 in the New York Times, it is mostly Black because Blacks did most of the cooking in private homes, hotels, and railroads. It is well documented that one of the significant jobs of the house slaves was to prepare the meals for the master, his family, and his guests. Many of the recipes that have been passed down for generations in both Black and white families and are the backbone of Southern cooking are born out of slavery. It is not the content of the recipes that is missing, but the context. All right, Bitcoin, we'll finish this last bite. Nancy McDermott, who is white, is a die-hard Southern cook. She has written many cookbooks about her roots. McDermott sees herself as a cultural anthropologist who digs beyond the recipe to tell a good cultural and often historical story. Her latest book, Southern Soups and Stews, embraces the traditions across Southern cultures, including the contributions of Black cooks. In it, she ponders the glory and nuances of the crown jewel of Southern soups and stews, gumbo. She honors New Orleans treasure and African-American chef Leah Chase, owner of Dookie Chase Restaurant. Chef Chase's gumbo, the herbs, cooked on Holy Thursday at the restaurant, is a tradition, she says. Don't worry, I'm feeding Bitcoin treats. I don't have him up here, but he's getting well treated down there. When she couldn't get back into the flood-damaged kitchen of her restaurant during the first Holy Week after Hurricane Katrina, she kept the promise she had made after the storm. According to McDermott, Chase set up a burner and cooked it on the sidewalk outside her restaurant. African-American food writer Toni Tipton Martin's book, The Jemima Code, gives a face and voice to the countless Black men and women who, she says, were the undisputed architects of Southern food. Tipton Martin cataloged nearly 300 Black cookbooks from as far back as 1827. African-American cooks and servants were always invisible and marginalized, she said, but Tipton Martin is cautious to use the term cultural appropriation, referring to the stories and recipes of the South. Appropriation sounds deliberate, when in fact there was no consideration given to the Black slaves, cooks, or maids, or the recipe's ownership at all. Tipton Martin also speaks on a piece of cultural appropriation of Black food that hits close to home for many Black Americans who have roots in the Great Migration of the South to the major urban cities of the North in the first half of the 20th century. She suggests that in some ways, African Americans' place in food history is not stolen. We just didn't fight for it. I can relate. And again, the writer of this article is a Black woman. So, I know it's out of context for me to be writing this, so please keep that in mind. I can relate. My grandfather came north with his parents from Opelika, Alabama, and my grandmother with her folks came from Commerce, Georgia. Like most, they didn't come with a lot of material things, but their food culture and recipes arrived intact. But their children didn't always embrace the good old days. My mother didn't see Southern food as a badge of honor. She was striving for middle class sameness. And this is to that, to note Atlas was talking about, there's this homogenization of cultures around the world. It's exactly this. Bitcoin. But their children didn't always embrace the good old days. I'm sorry. There are so many rules of what I could eat inside our home, but never out, especially around white people. We hid our culture in plain sight. It was as if eating lasagna and foregoing black-eyed peas was going to make or break our upward mobility. Food and race in this country are powerful currencies. Over the past 9 years, the nominations for the prestigious James Beard Foundation Annual Award for Best American Food Cookbook have gone to books about Southern food. Yet there has never been a book by an African American author to take top honors or even be nominated by American food category. Except for Marcus Samuelson. He won a James Beard for his memoir, Yes, Chef, in 2013. And Samuelson has done an incredible job of talking about this subject around diaspora. He has a show, he has like a reality TV show called Passport Not Needed or Passport Not Required. I forget what it's called. But basically he highlights immigrant chefs around the country to let you know that like there are a lot of really unique international cultures that we can experience without actually leaving the country. And I think that's great to keep that in mind. Keep people connected with those stories and knowing that the stories exist, and that two, like there are ways of supporting that preservation of heritage. But maybe the tide is turning. This fall, there has been at least 6 Southern cookbooks published by major houses and written by Black authors. Maybe we can begin a real conversation about race, culture, and food in this country and the contributions of everyone. So the writer of this article, the article's finished, is Andrea King Collier, the food writer based in Lansing, Michigan? And Southern food roots that run deep and wide. So there's that. What do you guys think about that? What did you guys think of that article? I chose it because it was a simple, easy, approachable one. Michigan. Oh, Michigan. Sorry about that. Thanks, Jim. Did I say Michigan? I always forget the state codes. I'm really bad at that. Lansing is the state capital. Oh, that's cool. I'm also bad at state capitals, obviously. Except for like the off ones, like ones that you don't expect. Yes, Bitcoin, you ate all the pizza. The pizza is gone. I have to move on to the black sesame bun. That was an interesting perspective. I wasn't expecting this writer to... Oh, you used to live in Michigan, Jim. Okay. Yeah, that's right. We talked about that. Yeah. You used to live in the cold. How this writer decided not to attach cultural appropriation to this case because it's unknowing. I mean, if you offend somebody without knowing you're offending them, or without knowing the context and the history, it's still offensive. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see her perspective on it now. Now, there are stories of cultural appropriation, Black culture appropriation. Specifically, the story in Nashville. Nashville, Tennessee is famous for this dish, the hot fried chicken. It's like a hot chicken. Very interesting story about hot chicken that I learned about in my friend's book. My friend published a book called Burn the Ice. He's talking about the cultural issues and food in the restaurant business. And that was intentional, deliberate appropriation of that recipe. That, yeah. Yeah, we can't, not only can we not retell someone's story, like what you're talking about. So Jim says the book surfaces what happens in all fields for Black people. Their contributions are covered up and forgotten. So not only should we actively not do that, but we should also do what we can to empower our peers and our friends to fight, because that's what the article talked about. That woman talked about it's not appropriation because these people unintentionally stole our stuff, but they were able to do that because we didn't fight for it. We didn't fight to preserve our story. And so that's two things that we can do for anybody, regardless of whatever race you are, you're Black, white, anything. Is actively not retelling someone's story. And that's even related to what I was talking about last week, the big learning that I've had over the past few weeks in my own personal life, is that you cannot criticize someone else's happiness. And I feel like that's very much related to this idea of retelling someone's story. It's it's not your story to retell, it's their story. You can only tell your own story. You can only know and tell your own story. So yeah, we need to actively not retell people's stories. And then we also can actively empower our peers and friends to fight for their stories. I guess that's the learning. That's the learning. But no, the story of the Nashville fried chicken, because it's actually a modern story. I think it's only from the 1960s or so that this recipe was created. And it's got a cool story. There's a very cool story of how the recipe was created by one specific story. And it is a well-documented, well-known story. And that person ended up creating a business to sell their recipe. And then it became so popular in the town of Nashville. It's almost as if the town itself took ownership of that story and made it their own. And so then other entrepreneurs could come in and appropriate that recipe in that story for their own use by justifying this is not their recipe, this is the city's recipe. And now we have these famous, hot chicken, the better marketers, the more capital rich businesses that jumped in on this recipe were able to expand that recipe far beyond. I think the original owner of the recipe had a couple, maybe three very successful, not to say that person did not do well for themselves. They did. But they certainly didn't have, private equity firms behind them to help them scale a national launch of chains like some of the other businesses that came in years later and stole that recipe as a Nashville pride. This is the city's recipe. And And these owners are first of all, some of the owners now aren't even from Nashville. And so that's something, it's like, not only are you appropriating from this one specific person, this black person, taking their recipe and making it your own as a city, but then there's outsiders from outside of Nashville that are are making, you know, big business out of selling this recipe. And so that is intentional and direct appropriation there. Yeah, you can read about that story all over the internet. It's been covered many times. The Nashville hot chicken. And you may even have a Nashville hot chicken restaurant in your town where you live. I know we got one. We got two, actually. We have two here in Vegas. They've opened on the Strip. They're in like high profile, high traffic parts of the Strip. And people, yeah, they're lined up and circled around the building for this hot chicken. Yeah, today's talk has been good. I appreciate you guys all holding space for this. It was important for me to do this talk, and I knew it was going to be sensitive. I knew it was going to be difficult, but and I'm grateful. Yeah, we were able to like first approach the topic of diaspora before talking about specific, you know, Black history, because I think even for people within that community, it's something to remind them on. What do you think? Time to eat. So what do I got here? Got a little, this is a black sesame bun. It's like a cinnamon bun, but it has, instead of cinnamon sugar in it, it's got black sesame paste with sugar. Put it in frame so we can all easily see it. Break it open. I love black sesame. This is actually like my favorite flavor of sweets. Like when I go to Japan, you know, soft serve ice cream is so popular in Japan. You know, the green tea, the matcha ice cream is good. See all those layers of black sesame in there. It's so good. Yeah, the matcha ice cream is good. Hojicha ice cream is very good. But my favorite is the goma, the black sesame. It's my favorite. So Jim, talking about covered up and forgotten stories, the story that I learned last night that blew my mind, inspired me to put this stream together, was the story of when the schools were integrated in the 1950s. There was like a federal-wide, countrywide order to integrate all of the schools, public schools. And there was one specific county in Virginia, I think it was called, I forget. They don't even deserve to get any kind of promotion here. But the whole county decided that they didn't want to integrate their schools. So what they chose to do was close all their schools down. All of them. The white schools, the black schools, all of them. And then they funneled all of the funding that would have gone towards those schools into vouchers that were given to all of the white families for their students to go to school at private schools. So the white students continued their education while the black students had to navigate their own way and figure out how they were going to educate their kids. And this went on for 5 years. An entire county shut their school system down because of how racist they were. And it wasn't until the federal government, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, had to outlaw their distribution of these vouchers for private school. That was only after that point then the county, had to reopen all their schools for all the students. 5 years. Can you imagine? I never heard that story before. And I don't know, have you guys heard that story before? Jim, have you heard that story before? This was like in 1955, I believe. Yeah, Jim, you never heard that story either. I never heard it. I was like, fuck, man. I've heard about, a lot of the violent things that have happened, but like that in itself is pretty damn violent. Like no one talks about that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use my platform tomorrow. And then I realized, this is the last week of Black History Month. So the timing worked out. But I want to continue this conversation. I'm definitely going to continue this open. And I mean, I definitely would talk more about the Black experience for tea, for the tea industry, tea culture. I certainly talk about the female's experience, sexism involved in tea. I talk about that often. But, I don't really have that chance to talk about the Black experience so much because there really is not much. It's a different type of violence. You're right, Jim. I mean, it was documented. Like I heard that story. There's a very good docuseries on Netflix that just came out. Will Smith is hosting it. It's called Amend. And it's about the Constitution. Well, it's specifically about the 14th Amendment and how, under-delivering it had been throughout history. And it's not just talking about race. They also talk about sexism and sexual preference, discrimination. But yeah, I heard that story in that docuseries, and then I looked it up online, and it had been documented in various websites. I actually ended up reading about the story in the state's website. So it was like in the state's archives. So I wanted to see, how the state had documented that story. And it seemed like they told the whole story. There wasn't a whole lot of pride behind that situation. But there's got to be so many other stories. So. Because like during that time, during like the 50s and 60s, there was probably so much violence. Not the overt violence that made the headlines and such, but even overt violence. There was probably so much overt and non-overt violence happening that only like 2% of the most extreme overt violence made it into the news, or even into like daily conversation. I am of the human race. That's right. We are one family. So why don't we act like it, Charles? And I say we, not as in you or me as individuals within the we, but the we as in our society. Why don't we act like we are all of the human race? We act like some people's stories, even if it's not the overt violence, right? The subtle violence. Even the subtle violence in that article that I said where the woman was like, this is, why don't we ever talk about the appropriation of Black cooks in American history? And the other food writer said, you're being too sensitive. Like that in itself, not validating someone else's trauma response or not validating someone else's ideas or thoughts is violent. It's not overtly violent, but it's still violent. So why the fuck do we do that? Yeah, well, unfortunately, Jim, that myth still exists in certain communities. the myth that black people with black skin are different or lesser human or hey Nick, welcome to the stream. Welcome in. Look what I'm eating. Look familiar? Here, Bitcoin. Bitcoin gets a piece. So yeah, please, Charles, please excuse my language, but sometimes it's necessary to show your true emotion around something you're saying. Why the fuck are we still violent like that? Like, why do we still have the capacity for that kind of violence? Not the overt violence. Like, everybody likes to focus the conversation of racism or oppression on that extreme overt violence when it's that subtle violence that we are all responsible for that gets overlooked. And I think, why are we even capable? Why do we even have the capacity for that? We're such an interconnected, interreliant global community of people. And, why don't we hold ourselves accountable for that? I know I do. And I still make mistakes. I mean, so Jim, you're right. They have different features, different characteristics, but the same thing can be said between man and woman. And that's probably an even touchier subject about like equality, equal opportunity, equal treatment, but then at the same time, all understanding those differences is like, physically, I am not suited for a certain activity. So we still have to hold space for that. We still have to hold space for that difference and the understanding of that difference. But how we hold space for that at the same time of saying we're not different. Oh, you have sesame mochi? I love sesame mochi. Black sesame flavored anything is my favorite. My favorite dessert in China when I go visit China is black sesame mochi that's like covered in sesame seed and then deep fried. Oh my God, it's so good. Your wife raised you a feminist. Well, that's a good wife. That's a good wife. I feel sorry for my future husband. Oh, Hungry Wolf, you're right. They are scary to fry, but damn, they're worth it. I'm not frying it when I go to China. I just order at the restaurant. But that's by far my favorite dessert. Oh my God, it's so good with like the crispy outside and then the soft mochi and then the hot, like melty black sesame center. They can explode with all sorts of terror. You're right, but I think like chefs and chefs that like are preparing that dish on a daily are pretty. Okay, well, it's good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. Speaking of like explode with all sorts of terror, the other night Nick was at my house. Helping me fix some drywall on my ceiling, and I was frying us up some dinner. And, oh no, that wasn't it. That was the hamburger night. That was the night that I made the juicy boosy. The juicy boosy. Snake High had recommended that I make the juicy Lucy because I said I'm making hamburgers tonight. What should I put them on? I'm going to make a stack. What should I put on? And Snake Eye was listing off all this stuff, and he was like, oh, here in Minnesota, we got the juicy Lucy. That's whenever you stuff the patty with cheese. I said, okay, I can do that. But I ended up like making a huge stack and the buns, because he also told me that I need to make the buns pizzas. And then he said, oh, donut buns are cool too. You should make a donut. And so I ended up making like a donut, but I stuffed the inside. Like I rolled it out and I put like pizza sauce and mozzarella cheese in there, and then closed them up and pinched them all up and closed up the donut and then fried that. So it was like two of those as the buns. And when I was frying those balls, I was like explaining to Nick how important it is to fully close up the dough. And one of them, yeah, I did pop open in the middle of frying and like big explosion. You can't be scared of it. You gotta just like be strong. You used to serve black bean mochi, fried black bean mochi on skewers with azuki bean puree. That sounds delicious. Where were you serving that? Were you like working at like an izakaya or something? That seems like a very popular like izakaya dish. So yeah, this is my black sesame creation. I found black sesame paste, which, you know, is actually quite easy to make at home. Oh, you did work at an izakaya. Cool. Mmm. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, that's a good one. They retired to Nagano. Is that a different izakaya? Did it stay an izakaya or did it turn into like a sushi restaurant or something? Yume. Yume-ya. Izakaya is really popular right now. Grandmaster Ong. Are you here? Thanks for the follow. 10 minutes ago. I'm sad if you've left. I would have loved to say hello to you. I like that. I like your screen name. Oh, okay, cool. Nagano. That's interesting. It has a Japanese name, but it's the Sichuan noodle spot. Interesting. Hand pull noodles are also hot now, too. I like hand pull noodles. We have a couple of good spots here in Vegas. We have so much good food here in Vegas. Like I got 3 go-to izakaya, and they're open till like 4 o'clock in the morning, both. And they all have like late night happy hours where they're like they're like half price menu items from like 10 p.m. to closing. The food scene off of the Strip is totally catering to the service industry, because the Strip has like a whole bunch of restaurants. Like there's a whole bunch of people that work. Hey Jacob, good to see you. Sensei Gunku, thanks for coming by, saying hello. So Chinatown, which is just here, like I'm based in Chinatown. It's like a 6-mile long strip of street that's just covered in strip malls. It's more of like Chinatown in the sense of like San Gabriel Valley in Los Angeles area. But the restaurants stay open super late. They cater to the service industry, doing like late night happy hours like that. So that works for me. Hungry Wolf, hand pulled noodles are voodoo and bullshit. I want to hear more about that. Because hand pulled noodles are like, my friend Clarissa Way, Hungry Wolf, you might know her. Clarissa Way, she's like a prolific Asian food writer. She's a good friend of mine. She used to work for Gold Thread, which is a pretty cool like media company, rather new media company that makes like educational videos about Chinese culture, mostly like foodie culture. And she had done a whole series where she went to like a hand-pulled noodle school, and like that's serious shit. Like they take that seriously. Like years and years of learning how to pull the noodles. I like watching the hand-cut noodles, like when they make the big block of the noodle dough and they just like. That's cool. That's pretty mesmerizing to watch. But I don't know. Like, so I want to know, like, what's the bullshit part? Does it mean that you don't think that they're like a good That's funny. Well, any recipe that says it's right and works perfectly is is wrong by default. I guess because it's become such a trend. What? We got a raid? My mouth is full of food. We have a raid right now. I can't talk. What? I'm getting raided. Zealousy, thank you. Thanks for coming by, guys. Happy Monday. Welcome to the tea table. My name's Elise, and we're drinking some tea. I'm doing some social eating. I've had tea today. I'm drinking tea right now. I'm about to brew some more up right now. Let's get it. I'm drinking a beautiful black tea from Darjeeling called Blood Moon. Blood Moon. Cool. And the reason why this tea is called Blood Moon is because it was harvested during the day of the blood moon in the summer of 2018. And the tea was withered and processed in the light of the blood moon. So that's why it's called Blood Moon. But it's just a simple black tea. This was harvested in the summer, so it's a second flush. It is neat, huh, Hungry Wolf? Yeah, you know, in the marketing of tea, a lot of times, like, these cool little stories get lost. Oh, cute cat. I like you guys brought all the tea cats here. Zealousy, is that your emote with the cat, the kitty with the guy wand? Is that your emote? I guess it is. You having a mini Bing? A mini Bing like one of these? They're so cute. The little mini Bings are so cute. Is it like one of these? Is it like one of these? So cute! It's so cute! I love these guys. Oh, this is a shunk. Zealousy. I like your emotes. Those are cute. I don't have any emotes. It's a 50 gram mini. Yeah, so this is like mini. Like if yours is a mini and it's 50 grams, what do you call this? This, I haven't weighed these, but I believe it's like 5 grams. You want to link it? You could try to link it, but mini Bings and bean buns. Shiloh, I like that a lot. That's so cute, isn't it? It's the cutest. Oh, you call these coins? Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way. I call it a coin. You can try to link it. Dragon Balls. I remember when Misty Peak Tea tried to take ownership of Dragon Balls. We developed this new technology of putting pu'er tea into balls. First time ever seen. Yeah, they are cute. You also want to see what else is cute? Come here, bud. Here he is. Bitcoin. Bitcoin in for some tea time. Hey. Trying to teven. He's trying to teven my bean bun. No way, Bitcoin. No way. No way. All right, guys. So you guys came in on my conversation. I'm like in the middle of a cool little tea break now. But we're having some pretty serious conversation today. Zealousy, earlier in the stream, our friend Atlas Brood stopped by. And we had a awesome conversation on this topic. And it was good. It was cool. We talked in the context of tea. But we had a conversation about diaspora, the concept of diaspora. So diaspora, just to catch everybody up. Diaspora means outside of, so the original word of diaspora was applied to the Jewish community outside of Palestine from thousands of years ago, but now it's a word applying to much more than just that community, which means people settled far from their ancestral homelands, the place where these people live, and the movement, migration, or scattering of a people away from the established or ancestral homeland. And I had highlighted this word established because it doesn't have to necessarily apply to people that have migrated away from their original ancestral land, because we could go down an endless rabbit hole of arguing that we all come from the same ancestral origin. But, if a community is established somewhere, once that community starts to scatter, you then get the diaspora, diaspora. And I'm talking about that in context today of Black History Month and Black history of the United States, and understanding that what we're talking about here is actually this diaspora. So it was cool. We got to have a conversation about this in context of tea and tea culture. And it was a really great conversation. And we're talking about really serious things today, which I typically do at my tea table. So I appreciate you guys taking a chance, coming to my tea table, knowing that I always like to take things deep. I always like to take things to that level. So if you guys have any ideas or any feelings about this concept of diaspora, and especially if you want to share your feelings in context of tea and tea culture, please share that. I'd love to hear your opinions on that. On Mondays, I do a segment, so you'll see the title of this video is Dignified Hospitality. I do talk about the hospitality industry on Mondays and how we can bring more dignity and respect to our food, from the farms to the supply chain, to the restaurants and the chefs and the servers and the bartenders. And so today, focusing on the Black experience in food. Okay, well, hey, Liana Shark Lord. Oh, we got a Shark Lord in here. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, I hope you enjoy your music and crochet. I'm sure you will. That is such a meditating, relaxing practice. All right, I'll turn the music on a little bit more. Today, in honor of Black History Month and of topic of conversation, I am playing some Delta Blues. Oh, Lily. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say? Lily. I'm sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry. All right, Lily, thank you so much for stopping by. We'll see you next time. I hope to see you again. Maybe I'll see you in one of Zealousy's streams. And Uhe, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you so much. All right, so Hungry Wolf says, I mean, it's literally just expats doing expat things. It's true, but okay, so why is it, that's something, Hungry Wolf, you brought up a good thing. No one has brought up the term expat in this conversation yet. And I think that's interesting because, yeah, you're right, expat, that is exactly it, but I have been an expat several times in my life, and I've been around a lot of expats. And I always wondered, why is it always like Americans living in other places that are called expats? I mean, is that because they're just patriots, like expatriates? So it's patriots? Like, so then people migrating into the United States from other places, would they be called expats? It's just kind of like a nuance on that word that I'm curious about. But you brought up the word expat, so yeah, I really wanted to know that. Ooh, that's a show! Yay! Zealousy, thank you so much. You brought up a cool, relevant story. Yes, all right. So maybe I'll find an article about that. So Zealousy says, I only learned late last year that the Korean fried chicken history started with African American GIs during the Korean War. I don't know that story. I hardly know about Korean fried chicken. I know it's like a trend. I know it's a trend, but I wasn't aware. Woo! Thank you for bringing that. I was asking chat about it. If they knew of any stories of like Black stories that have been like retold for the sake of, and this is a great one. I did mention the story of Tennessee hot chicken, or the Nashville, sorry. It is in Tennessee, but Nashville hot chicken. Which, you know, was a Black recipe, a modern Black recipe. Okay, so I'm looking at it, a Wikipedia article that's not talking about that, but maybe I'll find it. All right, I found an article, guys. Zealousy, thank you so much for bringing this up. I'm so sorry. You know, and it's so funny is I don't have a bot. I don't have any like mods or bots. And I get hit earlier today. Someone else had something removed. So I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that. But I would like to hear what you have to say about diaspora. I think it's important. All right, Hungry Wolf says, I mean, it's literally just someone living in a country other than where they were born. The reason it's heavily geared towards Americans is because we love to retire in prettier places where our money stretches farther. So is that a real diaspora? And we're loud about it. We do tend to be loud. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Zealousy. But yeah, I found this article. So how the U.S. military brought soul food to the world. After serving overseas, Black servicemen opened joints that dished up chitlins, cornbread, and fried chicken. Let's see about the Korean chicken. It said that there was something in here about the Korean fried chicken. Hey. Oh, so this is about soul food in the military. Oh, that's cool. So they brought soul food around the world. That's cool. But yeah, this is not about the Korean fried chicken. So So this article explains how the fried chicken was introduced into Korea, and then I'm sure their own flavors and twists got turned on to it, and then that's how. This article says Koreans were first introduced to American-style fried chicken during the Korean War. The concept of frying batter pieces of chicken was introduced by American troops stationed in South Korea during the late 1940s and early 1950s. Until then, Korea had steamed their chicken. This is just from like a discussion forum I found. Oh, can I? Let me see. I'm sorry about that, Zealousy. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Let me go allow all the other ones. Oh, so, yeah, okay, cool. Gossip. Got it. Thank you for that, Zealousy. Look up Gyopo. Okay. Thank you. I shall do that. Oh, that's interesting. So Wikipedia has a Korean diaspora article, but not a Chinese one, because when I looked up for the Chinese one, this is what I got. Overseas Chinese. Interesting, right? But the Korean diaspora, which they also say overseas Koreans. That's cool. The U.S. has the largest population. I love seeing this stuff. Like, I looked up the African diaspora, which is actually one of my favorite Wikipedia pages. Fascinating. America, the United States by far has the largest community. By far. Does it have anything in here about the fried chicken? So there's like, so they actually had a word, BD Nationals, Kyopo, had to have negative connotations as to referring to people who, as a result of living as sojourners outside their home country, have lost touch with their Korean roots. As a result, others prefer to use the term dongpo. So that's interesting, because, you know, even in the African diaspora article, it cites that the African Union, which is kind of like the European Union of Africa. I'm sure it's different, but like an overarching idea about what it is, it's similar to that. It defines African diaspora as consisting of people of native African origin living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship and nationality, and who are willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union. So, like, they put that stipulation in there that you have to be, like, invested in developing the origin. Kind of similar to the Korean definition of the word is, like, and that there's, like, this negative connotation because they lost touch with their roots. So, you know, the reason why this is exactly the reason why I brought up the concept of diaspora in the conversation around Black History Month is like, well, we're talking about a new history. You know, Black history in America is a new thing. It's like, it's new culture. It has nothing to do with, like, well, it has something to do historically and in terms of storytelling with African descent and African origin. But these are new stories, new culture, new struggles, which is absolutely true. But at the same time, I feel like there's like a whole bunch of healing and learning that can be done when we address this part about losing touch with your roots, regardless of where your roots come from. And, the concept of diaspora is not often included in the conversation around Black History Month, or, just the Black experience. And then that brings up the topic about the difference between, like, African American versus Black. Like, the words are very different, and I think it has something related to do with people that no longer identify with this African diaspora, because in the original definition, which I don't have open anymore, but in the original definition, it's the scattering of people from not only their ancestral lands, but also established communities. So it's like, these are communities of people that have established themselves in this new place, and then even scattering from that place. Like, let's say, like Trinidad. Like, let's say you're from Trinidad, and then you move to the United States. Like, like African American is no longer relevant, because Trinidad is the new place, is the new established origin. So I thought, this is just something that's, like, often left out of the conversation. I just wanted to. Why is that, Hungry Wolf? Hungry Wolf says, Dongpo is interesting too from a linguistic perspective. Well, I wish I could respect that more, because I'm pretty sure I'm not even, like, saying the word correctly. I don't even have... So Dongpo has a more transnational implication, emphasizing links among various overseas Korean groups, while Gyopo has more of a purely national connotation, referring to the Korean state. Did I? Dongpo? Okay, cool. Awesome. I know no Korean at all. I speak Japanese, and like, the tones I feel like are very similar, but I don't know any Korean. Hi, Murray. Look who's here. Look who doesn't say hi. Who's that? Who's that? Do you think that there's some kind of connection, a Hungry Wolf, between the notable Chinese writer Su Dongpo and this term of Dongpo in Korean diaspora? The data said not including mixed people. Really? I think it did say mixed people. You're talking about... Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Are you confused about that because of... You think... Like, because this number... Like, so then... Because mixed people will identify with being Black, right? So you're saying that there's, like, an even larger population? Is that what you're surprised about? Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to look him up then. I'll have to look him up. Hungry Wolf, I always like to instigate deep research holes. So, I'm all for it. I'll encourage you. I'll encourage you to look into that. Oh, that's funny. You want more Bitcoin? He says yes. Give me more. All right, IG. IG peeps. IG loves. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Hanging out in my spacey stream. Yeah, you're right, Jim. That's right. Red braised pork belly? What, Hungry Wolf, please enlighten me. What does red braised mean? By the way, guys on Twitch, if you are not following Hungry Wolf Kitchen, please go follow him because he's pretty awesome. He is a cooking instructor, very knowledgeable on Asian cuisine, which is awesome. Based in the Bay Area, he does cooking streaming. So you should follow him. He's very informative, super informative. Go follow him. But yeah, he's about to teach us what red braised pork belly is. I'm looking forward to learning that. Anything with pork belly is for me because obviously, if you guys haven't seen, one of my my tea pets here is a quartz rock that I acquired in China, in Chaozhou, that has like ferrous deposits on the side of it, and then they cut it to look like pork belly, so it's like my bacon rock. It's my sacred bacon rock, including my heart-shaped chicharron, which Bitcoin has had his eye on for weeks now. All right, so Hungry Wolf says red cooked is usually short for stewed or braised in soy sauce and sometimes wine and aromatics. Mmm. Sounds so good. It's a great way to get something tasty and tender if you're patient. Could you use like a pressure cooker? Like the Instant Pot? Oh, Jim, thank you for following Hungry Wolf. He's great. You are not going to regret that follow. You are not going to regret it. Now, Bitcoin will regret if he's not able to eat the rest of this bun, which... Should I give it to him, guys? Like, does he deserve it? Has he been that good of a good boy? Does he deserve it? So pork belly doesn't do well in the Instant Pot. I don't know anything about Instant Pot, and to be honest, I don't know much about pressure cooking either. Like, I know a lot about like the retort process, which technically is pressure cooking, but like for cans, like more industrial process of pressure cooking. But I don't use a pressure cooker in my kitchen. I don't have an Instant Pot. I'm not that cool. But yeah, so I don't know anything about pressure cooking pork belly. Oh, Jim, did you see what Jim just said? Tell Jim thank you. Who's that? You hear that, Jim? He says thank you. Of course Bitcoin deserves it. He wants to take it away. Hey, Jim wants to see you enjoy it. He wants to see you enjoy it. He's like, I want to eat my bun in private. Leave me alone. All right, Dirty Dish getting out of here. All right, you want to lick this too? You little animal? Thanks, Jim. Thanks for that. Does that qualify as ASMR? I don't know. People say like chewing with your mouth. Jim says he's got your back. Pressure cooking is often for things you want to fall apart, and pork belly is best when it retains its shape. Oh, that's good. Okay. I always thought that like pressure cooking was good for like expediting the cooking process, because really my only like firsthand experience with pressure cooking in the kitchen is when I spend time in India, which the pressure cooker pot is like the go-to pot in every Indian kitchen. They cook rice, they cook beans in it, and you know, it just cooks it fast. When pork belly falls apart, the meat to fat ratio goes out the window. Well, we don't want that to go anywhere, huh, Bitcoin? We want that fat to stay, huh, boy? Yep, that's what makes it crunchy and delicious. Delicious. Yeah, Bitcoin like the bun. He says thank you. He says he enjoyed it very much. It comes with risk of like overcooking it. It's a balancing act. Yeah, I bet. But I'll tell you what, like the mamas in the kitchen cooking with their, hey, oh, you just like, you think you're just going to go right in for the chicharron, huh? Be a good boy. Be patient, good boy, okay? The women in the kitchen in India, or in the kitchens that I visit that use the pressure cookers, they just like, they're just so fast and quick. They just put it on and leave it, and they just know when it's done. But I guess the pressure cooker like talks to you. Yeah, Jim says don't go over the line. See, that's why you gotta chew. Are you having trouble getting it down? I hope I don't have to give him the Heimlich. That won't be pretty. Are you okay? Could you imagine if I had to give Bitcoin the Heimlich remover on stream? Oh my god, that'd be so stressful. That'd be so stressful. Bitcoin, I couldn't handle that. Yeah, that's it. Snacks are done. Snacks are done now, Bitcoin. Snacks are done, boy. We finished all the snacks. Oh man, I just got that weather report. Tomorrow it's gonna be 74 degrees here in Vegas. Yes. Yes, Bitcoin, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with that beautiful weather? We go to the park? Yeah, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something fun. Super fun. And then we're gonna be making art. We'll be making art here on stream tomorrow night. And Wednesday, another Constitution study group. Maybe I'll revisit, since it's still Black History Month. And I've been inspired by this new docu-series on... Don't rub it in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to rub it in. Bitcoin, look in the camera. Let them all see how cute you are. Look in the camera, boy. Look how cute he is. He's such a handsome little boy. Such a handsome one. Yeah, I've been inspired by this show called Amend on Netflix. It's a docuseries. I think there's like 5 or 6 episodes in it. Hosted by Will Smith. Very watchable. Very watchable. The production of it is very easy to keep up. And yeah, they're looking at the Constitution. They're looking at history. And of course, talking a lot about the race issues. I think the first 3 episodes alone are just about race. And then there's an episode about sex. And I don't know. I still have to finish it. So I'm still feeling inspired from that show. So maybe I will continue on this conversation about specifically the 14th Amendment. And that's what the Amend show is about. And I've talked about the 14th Amendment before, but maybe intentionally looking at it from the perspective of the Black story, the Black experience here in this country. And then Thursday we have Tea Talks. This is just a live virtual tea party in our Topia Tea House, which you all are welcome to join. Bitcoin's there. He's always there. Bitcoin's always here. You know why? Because he's always looking for treats. So he's everywhere. Where are the treats? Huh? Where are the treats? Where are the treats? Hmm? Are you happy? Are you happy with your little bun and your pizza? And, yeah. today's been fun. This ended up being a lot more active of a conversation than I was expecting when I started this stream. And, great thanks to the wonderful tea community for joining in and helping out. I hope this has been like an enriching educational experience for all of you. I should go because I need to let you guys all go to sleep. Yeah? Is it time to go to sleep or is it time to go raid another channel? Who's on? Oh, Baby Yoda Girl's on. Always fun to... Tom Thinks is on. I wonder how... He's probably almost done. I like him, the cartoon. There's someone knitting. That could be relaxing. Oh, Jim. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out, spending time, and contributing to the conversation. I hope it's been a good use of your time. I do appreciate you, Jim, and I look forward to seeing you again, and I hope you have a great rest. Much love to you. I'm just checking out what... Snoring Cat Fiber Arts is knitting. Oh wow, that's cool. She's knitting some like scarves. Oh, she's on a break. I don't want to take us when someone's on a break. And you go see some art get made. That's always good. Oh, she's also on break. Everybody's on break. All right, I guess we'll go see Baby Yoda's. It's always fun to go visit her. All right, Hungry Wolf. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for your contributions. I appreciate you as always. And I look forward to seeing you on your next stream. I'm sure I'll see you somewhere else too. Maybe at one of Logan's streams. Hungry Wolf, enjoy your evening. Rest well. Talk to you soon. All right, we're gonna go raid. Let's go raid and just share the tea love with her. She makes Baby Yoda art and it's awesome. It's awesome. I raid her often, so she knows us. She knows us. Nighty night. Nighty night night. Bitcoin, you say rest well, huh? Say goodbye. Tell them goodbye. Tell them you love them. Huh? Tell them you love them. Say, I love you. Say it. Who's that? Oh, he's shy to tell you guys he loves you, but we do love you. Hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your night. Let's give some love to Crafting Canvas, the queen of Baby Yodas.